All right, everyone, welcome back and thank you for joining us. And today, as if you guys have been watching my posts and updates, we have a special guest from Boise, Idaho, and I'm sure I say that wrong. But anyway, Summer's great. She's a agent over in Boise, and she agreed to join us and have a little debate on Montana versus Idaho this week.
Yep.
So,
Happy to
hello,
be
Summer.
here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do over there and all of everything about Idaho.
Well, everything about Idaho. Well, we'll start a little bit smaller than that.
Mhm.
I'm a realtor in the Boise area, and we've lived here 21 years. So we moved here from California, really just moved here to have a cheaper way of life. Also, we wanted to be closer to more accessible recreation. So that was kind of our main draw to moving here 21 years ago, and then had our kids here and raised them here, and now run a real estate business. So we've watched it grow and been through all the ups and downs of that. And so now just selling people on moving to Boise because we loved it so much. And that's,
Yeah,
when I started my YouTube channel, that's why I started it, was just because we loved moving here so much and having the opportunity to raise our kids here that I thought everybody should know about this.
by the
So
way, if you guys want to check out Summer's channel, it's called Summer Aston Real Estate, and you can find her on YouTube as well. So yeah, I put it up on the screen. So when you guys, so 21 years, so about the early 2000s,
right.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um, I was telling Summer before we came online that I used to live in Idaho up in McCall, about 100 miles north of where she is, and it, I mean, I'm sure, and I haven't been back there for quite a few years now, but I'm guessing that Boise, just since you guys moved there, has just changed immensely.
Yeah, it has. I think having come from bigger cities in California, even with all the growth we have here, it still hasn't reached what California has. And so it doesn't feel overwhelming or anything like that to us. But I know a lot of local Idahoans who've been raised here, they're 50, 60 years old, who are overwhelmed by the growth that's happened here. But yeah, the joke used to be when we moved here that you could get anywhere in town in 15 minutes for, like, ask people, how far away is this? Oh, 15 minutes. And now it's more like 25 minutes. So definitely just increase in traffic and lots of growth for
Yeah,
sure.
when I lived there, the Eagle Road was kind of the main drag from to get down to the freeway. Is that still the case, or
That's
have
still
they
the main
expanded
drag.
it?
Yep. They've expanded some sections of it to 3 lanes on either side. It's still the main drag. It still is known as having the most traffic in the whole state of Idaho, because we still only have the one freeway, Highway 84, that runs north south. A little bit down in southeastern Idaho, the 15 comes in. But yeah, we really only have that one freeway. So you got to get down Eagle Road to get to that freeway.
Well, yeah, the traffic back even when I was there was just brutal on Eagle Road, and so um, yeah, well, it's the same here. I mean, we had here where I'm at, the last 3 years have just been like incredible growth, and we're just trying to catch up. And like you said, the locals that have been here forever are quite annoyed with it all, but um, like I always say, and until they tear down the mountains and fill in all the lakes and streams, the people are going to want to be up here. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's just a good quality of life. And so, when you've come from areas of where you see a lot more homelessness and crime and all that kind of stuff, um, when you move here, or I'm sure where you live, it's just so nice. So people here that see, we actually haven't had a increase in crime. Statistically speaking, we haven't had an increase in crime in the last few years, in the Boise area at least. But when people see, maybe a homeless person somewhere, and they just like, we're moving out of here, it's like California. I'm like, you have no idea.
yeah,
So
there is
it's
no
very nice.
comparison. So one thing I do on my show, if you've ever watched it, Summer, I'm not sure if you have or not, but um, I got to get this out of the way before we go any further and get into the Montana versus Idaho thing. But I do the police report from the last 2 weeks so everybody can
Oh,
see,
okay.
speaking of crime, and we'll go through the things and maybe you can compare it to what you have down there. But
I don't know. I'm gonna have to look for it.
our first report was a bear dragged a bear-proof garbage can onto the highway.
Oh
So we
yeah.
don't want that. And a couple was arguing after a man accidentally closed the car door on his partner's toes when trying to let her out of the car.
Somebody called that in.
Yeah, it's all of these. That's why I do this, because I can't believe that people actually call the police. A man stole his mother's garage door opener. That wasn't very
Okay.
nice. And then 4 dogs equipped with bark collars kept helping each other out by chewing off each other's collars. I'm not sure what the police did about that, but at least they were notified.
Right. Who was the accomplice there?
Exactly. A caller gave an officer a real-time play-by-play as someone stole his mailbox.
He just was like watching it happen.
Yeah, probably should have got it on video.
Yeah.
Someone wanted to know if it was illegal to rollerblade through the city streets. As far as I know, it is not. This one's a good one. A difficult hospital patient would only take his medicine with ice cream.
And I wonder, like, who called the police in that scenario?
I don't know. And then a caller wanted to let law enforcement know that the dog he'd reporting missing was found hiding in his house. Well, that's good news. And then the final one for this week is a caller smelled smoke and wanted the fire department to come see if something was burning, but requested they do so without the lights or sirens as it was late. So at least they're thinking about their neighbors.
Yeah, very respectful.
But yeah, so there's the police report for this week.
Was that mostly in what town is that mostly from?
I get it out of it's called the Flathead Beacon, and it covers all the little towns here in the Flathead Valley, but Kalispell's the main town. So
yeah. I mean, I think if we did a direct comparison to your area versus Boise, we'd have a little bit more, cars getting stolen and stuff like that too. Just, I mean,
yeah,
obviously we have our whole valley is pushing between 8 and 900,000 people. So our area is quite a bit larger in population than your area is.
Oh, wow. Well, so I was just pulling this up while we got on the subject of population. I Googled that and it said Boise was only 237,000. Is that just Boise proper?
Yeah, that's just Boise City. But now Boise and there's really 7 main cities in our valley, and they are mostly combined. We still have some open space between some of them, but like Boise's completely combined now with Eagle and Meridian. And then Eagle and Star almost combined. Nampa and Caldwell are all meshed together. So it will all fill in. But yeah, so for the whole valley, including some of the smaller towns, we're right between at 800 and 900,000. Depends on what source you look at.
That's crazy.
And that's within about, I mean, I don't know the exact population density, but that's within about an hour drive, like in any direction, an hour from one end of town to an hour to the other end of population, I should say.
Yeah, because, Montana is the 4th biggest state in the nation, and we only have in the entire state 1.1 million. So you guys, just your little valley is catching up to our entire population.
Right. Yeah. And our whole state is just under 2 million now. I think when we moved here, I like, don't quote me on this, I'd have to look it up. But I remember thinking when we moved here, we were kind of laughing about how we were just under 1 million in the whole entire state. So we are just under 2 million in the whole entire state. I mean, of course, if you compare that to like Los Angeles County, or I don't know, whatever. It's still very low population density. But one of the things that you had brought out on one of your videos in the past, and we've discussed a little bit, is how we have these massive amounts of public land and things like that, which, I mean, obviously our population isn't as dense as something like Los Angeles County, but because we have limitations on where we can build, it does increase that density, because we just can't go out into the mountains and build there. Out Boise has the mountains to the north, which are it's all the mountains between, Boise and Missoula, right? So it's all amazing, beautiful, but very rugged wilderness. And then when you go out to the south, it's all desert and the Snake River, and it's not very habitable either. So yeah. So then we get these little population centers between all that public land.
Yeah. Well, I when I did that video, I'm trying to think back. I've done a few now, but I think I was talking more about northern Idaho, because if you
Right.
go straight west of here, you come out in the panhandles over into
Right.
Coeur d'Alene, Sandpoint area, and that's where I was kind of talking that, Coeur d'Alene, we go to Spokane sometimes, and
Uh-huh.
that whole area is just getting jammed. And my
Right.
theory is that there's no room because of
Yeah.
all the public land, and the public land is great. And thank goodness there is that. Otherwise,
Right.
it'd be a giant city. But
Right.
it's getting pretty jammed up in the northern half of Idaho now. And I know you guys even down in southern Idaho, don't you have some, like in the southwest corner? Isn't that kind of like it's like national forest, but it's actually desert area?
Yeah, it's desert area. It's all of that's desert. I mean, we've got farming, desert, and then mountains. So but yeah, it's desert.
Yeah.
And so it's not that habitable unless they put in a lot of the irrigation, networking for that. But
Well, we are starting to get some questions rolling in. Let me
okay.
first of all say hello to everybody. Hello to everyone in Oklahoma. We always seem to get Oklahoma people watching. We
Yeah,
got
that
Joe
was
from
something I wanted to ask you about. We don't have to do it right now, but just where do you see the influx of your people come from versus us? Because the Rocky Mountains seems to be a little bit of a divider. If maybe you get more people from the east and we get more people from the west, I don't know.
Yeah, east of you guys, but not like the East Coast. We see a lot of Texas people.
Mhm.
Weirdly enough, a lot of Colorado people.
Oh yeah,
I would have thought, the first few people that called me from there, I was like, why? I mean, you guys are kind of the same as us. Why you? And again, they were getting overpopulated in Denver,
right.
and the traffic and the people and
Yeah,
the government stuff, and
right.
so yeah,
Yeah,
we get a lot of that, and obviously California, a ton of Seattle people,
yeah.
Portland people. So
Yeah, that's about that. I mean, that's about the same as us too. I've had some Colorado people, and then mostly obviously West Coast, and Texas and Florida as well, and Arizona. We get quite a bit of Arizona.
yeah. All right, where were we? Gordon, hello. Brandon from Oklahoma, hello. John, and then Maria is a good friend of mine. Bought a house a couple years ago. They were looking in Idaho before they finally were sold on Montana.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm sure Maria will be the number one fan of Montana. They've just kind of moved up here, and you'd think they lived here for 100 years. I mean, they've just
Oh,
fit
that's
right in,
awesome.
and they got a great place down in the Condon area. And we've got Gary. Hello, I lived in Boise for a year and a half. Hidden Springs. Is that a
Nice.
subdivision or a town?
Yep, it's a subdivision. It's very close to where I live, so very familiar with it. In the
All right.
hills.
And then Britt, I was born in Twin Falls, grew up in Columbia Falls, and now live in Oklahoma. Can't wait to move back to Columbia Falls. There you
Yeah.
go. Looks like Montana's winning the battle here so far.
I don't know if it's a battle. It's just educational conversation to help people make a decision.
This is true. Let's see. I came here via Far Cry. Montana looks dope in a video game. How's real life? Real life is awesome. You can watch all of my videos and see what it's exactly what it's like. Here's Maria. We came from Tucson over 2 years ago. Horrible there. Homeless, crime, all of it. Happy to be in Northwest Montana. So yes,
Yeah.
they are doing good. Here's a good question for you, and I don't know if you know the Bozeman Airport, but Frank wants to know: is Boise or Bozeman better for airports?
Well, you might be able to talk about Bozeman. Boise is a great airport. It's super easy to get in and out of, and they have a lot of direct flights now. So I travel quite a bit to visit family, and it's awesome to get in and out of. I've heard that if you live in the Montana area, oftentimes it's harder to get from Missoula even or Bozeman. You have to have a connecting flight into Salt Lake and then other areas, and it's more expensive. So I've had friends that live in that area that sometimes they'll like drive to Salt Lake to save money or whatever. So I don't know. Is that true for Bozeman?
You know, because Bozeman's 5.5 hours away from me,
Yeah.
we fly out of the Kalispell Airport whenever we fly,
Oh,
and
okay.
Bozeman is a little bit bigger, and they have a few more flights than we do. Because they have the college there, just like you guys have Boise State.
Right.
They have Montana State, and so because of that, they've always been bigger than us. And there's some tech companies that have moved in there, and Big
Hmm.
Sky Ski Resort is just south of there, and that's kind of blown up into a huge resort,
Right.
and a lot of high end, super wealthy, mega rich. There's a
Yeah.
Yellowstone Club, it's called, up there, and then there's some other ones they just built right in the same area that, I mean, just crazy money down there.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that airport is the busy, or I don't know, busiest, biggest, whatever you want to say, in Montana right now as far as flights go. But
Okay.
they're expanding ours, and you know, we have tons of flights, especially in the summer. I know last year they even had a flight nonstop a couple times a week from LaGuardia into
Oh,
here.
wow. That's
Yeah,
cool.
so I don't know if they still have that one, but you can get in the summertime, you can get nonstop to pretty much all over. They had Atlanta, Dallas, LA, Phoenix, and then the normal, like, year round, every day, we have flights to Minneapolis, Salt Lake, and Seattle. Um,
Okay.
so that's normally where you
Yeah.
connect. Um,
You guys get very many commuters. So we have a lot of commuters that move here. And so the airport is very important to them because we have a lot of people who are still working their jobs in California, Oregon, or Washington, especially. And then they'll like work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So like medical professionals, we've got firemen and police and things like that who just did not want to stay in those other states, and so they're commuting, and so the airport is a big part of their decision. Do you have very many commuters like that?
yeah, there's definitely people that commute. I knew a guy that was commuting to Chicago once a week.
Uh,
So yeah, we, again, you guys are so much bigger than us.
yeah.
Um, we don't. Yeah, there are some people, but that's not a huge thing
Right.
here
Yeah.
yet. Um,
Yeah, we do have a lot of people as well commuting to Portland and Seattle, and my husband used to do that once in a while, just go from here to Portland early in the morning and go to Portland for a meeting and then fly home in the evening because it's, I don't know, like an hour flight. So
yeah. So we have Rusty from Illinois, and then we have looking at whitefish in Flathead Lake in Montana or Sandpoint in Idaho. Curious of differences in how locals accept other races moving in. Generally speaking, would conservative leaning Asians be okay? I think if you're a nice person in this area, it doesn't matter. Of course, there's crazies all over that, ruin it for everyone. But from what I've seen, if you're a decent person, it doesn't matter what color, what you look like, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
That's, so, let's see. Can you recommend area to buy land? Um, depending, that's that could
Loaded
go a
question.
million different ways. So, uh, you'll have to be more specific. Then we got someone from Philadelphia. I went to Penn State, by the way, so I'm somewhat
Oh,
familiar
nice.
with that area. Here's a good question. Which state is more friendly for retired people? Well, unfortunately, Summer may win on this debate.
I'm not sure on the Montana taxes. So, do you guys have income tax?
We do. The difference is, from what I've researched, is we don't have a sales tax. You guys
Right.
do.
We do.
Um,
It's
but
6%.
our property taxes are a little higher. The bad part about Montana is that they do tax your Social Security.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
So we have our income tax maxes out at now I'm wondering. It was 6%. And then there I think there was a change this year to a flat rate max. Anyways, sorry, I should know that off the top of my head. But it was maxing out at 6% for the income tax. And then our property taxes, well, it's hard to say exactly, but they generally are around 1% of the assessed value of the house, which is lower than the purchase price. But then you also get a property tax or a homeowner's exemption. So they're usually much lower than other states' property taxes.
yeah, and ours are a mess this year just because they assess you every 2 years, or they reassess you, and they go off of what your house is now valued. Well, what's
Uh-huh.
happened in the last 2 years? I mean, houses have gone
Yeah.
through the roof. So now everyone's taxes. And I've been meaning to do a video on this, but I know it'll get political, and not trying to do that. But so our legislature only meets once every 2 years, which is a good thing in some cases and a bad thing in other cases. Um, but they just met this last spring, and they could have fixed this, but they chose not to. They chose to focus on banning TikTok. So at
Oh,
least we got that going for us. But now our
okay.
taxes are going through the roof.
Did you guys get TikTok banned?
Yeah, it starts in January. But again, that's the
Okay.
dumbest thing ever, because they can't. I mean, all they're going to do is take it down off of the app store in January. But if you already have it, how do you shut down? I
I
mean,
don't know.
it's all for, they all wanted to go back to their home districts and, tell everyone how great they are that they, stopped TikTok and
Right.
saved us from China invading Montana. So,
Huh. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we get our property taxes are assessed every year. But it's very interesting. I don't know the formula on how they figure it, because so yeah, all of our values went up like 30% plus. Probably the same as you. What happened was they did like a property tax relief for 2020, where they didn't raise assessed values for that year. But then of course the next year it just like went way up. But then they readjusted the levy rates. And so although our property taxes did go up, they did not go up the same like proportion to the values of the houses. And now that the home values are coming down a little bit, then those property taxes will be reassessed, and then they'll come down. So it's not set like based on your purchase price, like I know they do in California. But then of course that they've got an allowance to raise the taxes there a certain percent too. But
Yeah. Here's another one for you. Hi from Northern California. We'll visit Boise in late March to check out Eagle Meridian. Impressed with those two towns from what we saw online. They've been watching your videos, I guess.
awesome. Yeah. Check out my YouTube channel if you haven't watched them. And I've got tours of those towns. And yeah, they're both great great places to live, a little bit different in what you would want, but reach
Well,
out if you want to.
the way I found Summer, and I was thoroughly impressed, and I've been meaning to do this ever since I stumbled upon this, but she has the coolest map, interactive map with videos of the Boise area that
Oh,
is just, it's awesome. So anybody looking to move there, if you get on that, it's kind of like a personalized tour of the town. It's incredible.
yeah. Well, probably like you, there's so many people now that are just trying to figure out where they want to move to. And it's super overwhelming, right? If you don't know anything about that area. So because I'd made videos of all these different towns and I, made that Google, what do you call it? I don't know. I can't think of the word, but anyways, I made that special Google map and was able to insert all those videos so that from home you can actually see on the map like where I made those videos, so you can just kind of get a better overall feel for the whole area. It's because it's quite varied. I don't know about where you guys are, but our valley out on one side it's more farmland, out on the other side you're closer to the hills and the mountains, and so it's really quite different. So
Well, I have a question for you since I haven't been there forever. When I used to drive down there from McCall, you'd right before you got to Boise, you'd go through Horseshoe Bend.
right.
Is that already connected now, or is
No.
it still kind of out in the country a little bit?
No, I mean, but the topography does limit us somewhat, and the accessibility of the roads. So we pretty much up Highway 55, where you head up north, but and Eagle is that farthest town on the valley. And then you've got another like 15 to 20 minutes from Eagle up 55 and down into Horseshoe Bend. So Horseshoe Bend has not really grown. It's still a very typical small Idaho town, but they got amazing pies. If you go to Horseshoe Bend, get pies at Volcanic Farms.
How
But
about the road? Is the road, have they widened? I mean, that road is 100 miles up to McCall, and half of it was this narrow 2-lane nightmare of a road. Have they fixed that?
it's the same. I mean, I don't feel like it's a nightmare of a road. So maybe they've like straightened some curves or something. But it is a 2-lane road. And as far as being a nightmare, like if there's a lot more pullouts maybe than there used to be before. But yeah, especially now with all of our growth, people going up there with trailers, it's very, very slow going, because that is obviously the main highway from here all the way up to Canada. So
Yeah.
that's you've got Highway 21, which also takes you up into the mountains, but that Highway 55 is the main way into all the mountain recreation area. So
Yeah.
yes, gets very backed up.
Mary Beth just got back from Alaska. It was like Montana on steroids. I agree. That would be correct. And then here's a local one. Do you know Susan?
Oh, I know Susan very well. Thank you for watching, Susan.
Had the best experience with summer as a realtor when we moved from California.
Yeah, Susan and her family moved here from LA, and they lived right in Santa Monica. So they made a very, very big change. And I think, I have people who frequently come and they're looking at Boise, they're looking at something like Bozeman, and then they're looking at, one other city, and they're kind of like narrowed it down to these 3 cities. Boise's a really good fit for people who are not ready to like go completely, wilderness, and it's a capital city. So it's a really good place for people to have more access to wilderness and what Idaho has to offer, but still have a lot of the city things that people are used to.
All right. Then K-Dub, which is one of our regular viewers here. For retirement, Idaho ranks higher for retirees. I recall Montana taxes Social Security, which admittedly doesn't matter for higher income folks. This is true.
Yeah. And I think overall that at least we're in your area, it seems like our median home prices, wow, I know our home prices are expensive, that you guys are quite a bit more than us still.
Yeah, home prices, you mean?
Yeah, your median home price.
Yeah. Well, because it's so much nicer here, right?
That's
Just
what they
kidding.
say.
I can't be too mean to you if I want to ever have you back on this show.
It's fine.
Um, well, speaking of that, I got this. So this, I'm just warning everybody right now. Once you see this, if you haven't seen this already, you can never unsee this. But I saw this a few years ago for the first time, and it just goes to the fact that way too many people have too much time on their hands to come up with this stuff. But if you look at the map, if you look at the border of Montana and Idaho, it looks like, and again, once you see this, you
Oh
can
yeah,
never unsee this.
I've
It
seen
looks
that
like
one.
Montana's looking down at Idaho,
Yeah.
or somebody just recently said it
Yeah.
looks like Joe Biden is sniffing Idaho.
Yeah, I saw that one.
So
Yeah.
those are kind of funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, where were we? Having spent the winter in Eureka, we met newcomers from Tennessee, Nebraska, Iowa, Washington, California, Nevada. Many retired law enforcement people wanting quiet. Yeah, Gordon, I do get a lot of law enforcement people calling me. Do you get that too, Summer?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of retired law enforcement moved to the area.
Yeah. Well, again, like we were talking earlier, the crime up here is nothing compared to where they're all coming from.
Yeah, but it's true.
Adam, Whitefish versus McCall, best summer, best winter, best downtown, which wins? Have you been to Whitefish before?
We've only driven through just on our way to Glacier a couple different times, that whole area. So we never have spent time in the downtown area.
Well, I feel I'm qualified to say this because I've lived in both towns. I
Right.
live in one at the moment. Um, McCall is awesome. It's beautiful. It's much smaller than here, just because our
Right.
valleys. That's one thing I wanted to talk about too. Our valleys here in Montana are way bigger and wider
Right.
and more open than in Idaho. They're kind of, again, it's beautiful. I'm not ripping on them. They're just different.
Right.
They're all surrounded by mountains. It's just Idaho, you're a lot higher, so the mountains don't look as big, um, and the valleys are smaller. It's almost a little claustrophobic sometimes driving through all that. But McCall is awesome. I enjoyed living up there, and it's very similar to Whitefish. There's a lake right in town. There's, you
Mhm.
know, but the difference is because we're a bigger area, there's more around Whitefish than there is McCall, like an airport and whatever. You can get out of here quicker. You can get around McCall. You're almost on an island where, like we were just
Yeah.
talking, it's 100-mile drive down to Boise, and that road
Right.
you don't usually make good time on.
Yeah,
Um,
we have friends that live in McCall, and they come down. I mean, they come down to Boise. We have a neighbor that has a little townhouse here and comes down, and they bought a townhouse here, but they live in McCall, but they bought a townhouse so that when they come down from McCall to run errands and stuff, they have a place to live. So, but we've got friends that come down once a week or something from McCall for, I don't know, their kids' music lessons or whatever, and make that drive.
yeah. Again, and there's a ski resort in both places. The one in Whitefish is a lot bigger than the one in
Yeah.
McCall.
We've got Tamarack and Brundage now in
Oh,
that
that's right. I
area.
forgot Tamarack. That place has kind of been up and down and bankrupt and not bankrupt. And
It's
is it
doing pretty good
where
now.
is it
Yeah,
is it
it's
built
doing
up?
really well now. Yeah, we all should have bought the little townhouses, the little condos there when it was down. They were like under 100,000, and now they sell for like 750 to 1 million, and should have snatched them all up.
Yeah. Um.
As far as the winter goes, though, I'm not sure about Whitefish. McCall is definitely more Idaho mountain winter than Boise is. So McCall, you are going to have that snow on the ground pretty much once it starts really snowing, like November through April. I don't know on the temperatures compared to you guys, but it's, you're going to have highs in the 20s and lows could be below zero, but not too often below zero in that area. But like you were saying about the valleys here, I do think that it seems like Montana does have more options for mountain living in like feasible towns, if that makes sense, because most of Idaho's mountain towns are like they're barely towns. And
Yeah.
so you just have to really want an isolated mountain lifestyle to live there. And just like you said, they're hard to get to. So we don't have as many options as far as I can tell based on looking at the map. So what I know about Montana as Montana does for kind of that mountain living, but still have like grocery store and community and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, once you get up, well, in between you guys and McCall and north of
Yeah.
McCall, it's just there's nothing. There's
Right.
not a
Well,
lot
and
going
it's
on out
like
there.
it's exactly what you said. It's so rugged that you just don't have the the space, for people to build. And then also we do have a huge, we talk about the public land, but I forget the percentage, but I think it's 40%, something like that here is Frank Church Wilderness Area, which is
Mm.
that whole area between, kind of in northern Idaho, between Idaho and Montana, where you can get in by boat, you can get in by hiking, and you can get in by airplane. So that, that's very rugged land. So for those reasons, like some people are disappointed when they call me about like, what are the options for living in Idaho? And I'm like, there's these 6 main options in the state. They ask me about these other little towns. What about this town? And I'm like, there's 30 people that live there. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, when you go straight west from or straight east from McCall, you don't hit anything until you come out in Hamilton, Montana, and that's about
yeah,
200 miles or whatever it
yeah,
is
yep,
of just pure wilderness. So it's
yep.
pretty country. Yeah, the Idaho is a very pretty state. So, Chad, why does Northern Idaho seem to have better job market than Northwest Montana? I live in Post Falls and sell eyeglasses for a living. Job market in Montana seems rough. Well, I can speak for the Montana part. We're so tourism based. And again, we just had this huge influx of growth. We do have a couple of industries here, logging. It was our big industry up in this part of the world, but now it's more tourism based. So yeah, we don't have tons of high paying jobs that you'll get up there. The other thing that Northern Idaho has that we don't is you guys have an interstate running right through there, and you have Spokane right
Yeah,
down the road. So there's this access to way more people over in that area than there is where we are.
that's what I was going to say. Spokane, I think, is really the main reason, because I'm sure, this Chad probably knows living in Post Falls, but there's a lot of people that are commuting back and forth and going between Spokane and Northern Idaho.
Yeah, so we're getting a ton of questions. Thank you guys. We'll try and get to all these. Mary Beth must have looked this up. It looks like Idaho income tax is a flat rate of 5.8%.
Okay, yeah, I knew they changed it to a flat rate. I'd made a video about retirement, and then it was like I wasn't sure when it took effect, and so.
And Frank says Boise has milder winters compared to Montana. Summers are hotter, but they do have a river running right through the middle of town. I would compare. Have you been to Missoula?
Yes, I have been to Missoula. Mm-hmm.
That's what I kind of compare Boise to. That's the closest thing. It's kind of the same look, kind of the
Yeah,
brown mountains around it. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's again, Missoula's not anywhere as big as Boise, but it looks
right.
similar. And there's a
Yeah,
river running through it. That's why I thought. That's why I
I mean,
thought
I
of that.
I think I know. I think compared to almost all of Montana, Boise, so they call Boise the banana belt of Idaho, and it really does have much more mild weather in the winter than the whole rest of the state of Idaho. So even like I was driving home from Idaho Falls area one time in January, and it was horrible, horrible weather, and you get right outside Boise before you drop in, and I mean, it's not the tropics, but it changes, and it's not all icy. And even though there's a little snow, it's just a little warmer, and it doesn't have the wind that the other parts of the state have. So, yeah, a lot of people do choose to live in Boise when they're trying to choose different areas in the Mountain West, just because it does have a much more mild winter.
And then how's the Island Park, Idaho area? Seems to be nicely located between Yellowstone, Idaho Falls, and Big Sky. Island Park, I
It's
don't even know where.
beautiful. It's very I guess what we call, it's not, I mean, they don't have like big fancy resorts there, but it's very vacation-y, I guess. Like everyone's like, from Boise and other areas are like, let's go to Island Park. So people go there in the summer to go to Island Park. It's very pretty. It's not too far from more amenities like in Rexburg and Pocatello, but I don't think there are a lot of amenities in Island Park. But yeah, it is close to Yellowstone, and the winters are definitely Idaho mountain winters.
Yeah. How was that transition for you guys coming up from California? The first couple winters, were they rough or did you enjoy it?
Um, no, we loved it. I would like more snow. My husband and I like the snow, but the length of the winter was hard for me to get used to. So, we were in grad school. My husband was in grad school when we moved here, and I had a friend, and we were both pregnant, and she was from Hawaii, and it was like March, and it was still, I don't know, 35 degrees, and we were like, "Ugh, when is it getting warm?" So the length of the winter is always a little hard for me, but the temperatures are fine. Once I learned how to dress, I would have to say, once I learned how to just layer and get the right clothes and the right shoes and just go outside anyways, then it's fine. But yeah, we like the snow though.
All right, here's another question. How are the public schools in Montana and Idaho? Not to be overly political, but you kind of are. Do the schools teach kids to love the USA, recite the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, my daughter is no longer, she's graduated from college, so that's dating
Yeah.
me a bit, but I believe they used to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't think
As
that
far
has
as I'm
gone away.
aware, all the schools here are saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, my youngest is almost 18. So um, I haven't heard any parents in the neighborhood or anything complaining about that. So I don't know if the schools are that necessarily different. The public schools here, which I'm sure in Montana, they all teach Common Core. So you may have your own opinion about that. But we do have, I don't know about Montana, but we do have a ton of school options. We've got charter schools and magnet schools. And then it's also very easy to homeschool here. And then you can also have your kids like homeschool and go to the public school and still participate in the public school sports. So Idaho is known for just the huge amount of school choices for your child.
That's kind of cool because I don't, there's a lot of homeschoolers around here too, but they have their own like team where all of the homeschool
Yeah.
kids join on a team. They don't
Oh,
affiliate,
they
as far
don't.
as I
They
know.
can't
I
play in the
may,
public schools.
and I may be wrong, but
Yeah.
it seems though when my daughter was that age, that wasn't a
Yeah.
thing. So
That's more common. I know my sister moved from California to Texas, and she was a little disappointed to find out that they're kind of an all or nothing. Like, yes, you can homeschool, that's fine, but you can't also go to the public school and homeschool and then like participate in the public school activities. But here it's really great because and I did that with my kids sometimes where they were homeschooling and they went to the public school for certain classes and then they still played like tennis or soccer or did band and everything with the public school. So it's a really good system.
then Maria's apparently helping somebody find a house up here. Um, Mary Beth, Idaho is a beautiful state. No one is going to argue that.
Yeah.
What else we got? Here we go. Which areas of the Treasure Valley have the lowest crime rates?
Well, I'd say look at a crime map and see. I'd say I don't know what the lowest rates are. They There's really no like bad area. So I know oftentimes when people live in California and things like that, it is pretty important that you're like, oh, our values are going to be definitely lower because this is like an area to stay away from. When people move here, they really choose just based on like their budget and lifestyle, and do they need to be closer to the freeway or closer to the foothills or closer to downtown or whatever. So, you know, the you could look it
I
up on a
know
crime. Yes.
I get that all the time where they'll look online and it'll say, because they do
Yeah.
it per capita.
Yes, I
And
know.
so it,
There are
and
some, yeah, there's
so
some
it makes
towns,
it,
like super small towns here that it looks like it's the worst town in the world to live because there's outside of the valley, like I talked about, you've got towns where there's like 300 people that live there and
yeah,
one person got their car broken into or whatever. So it's like bright red, like this is the worst place to live. So you do have to really think about it when you check those crime maps.
yeah, that's the one thing I get constantly is like, well, it says this town is horrible. I'm like, you're coming from LA
Right.
for God's sake. I said
Yeah.
anywhere you live up here is going to be nothing like what you're thinking is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we used to live in the Rocky Mountains, and those roads are terrifying to drive. Are the roads in Idaho near Sandpoint Bonners Ferry like Rocky Mountain driving? Yes.
Yeah, that whole area, I mean, one thing I don't, it depends on people's expectations, I guess, about the sizes of these towns and how far apart they are from each other. I do have a lot of people that come from areas where, like, you look at LA County or Orange County, and you've just got like a town and town and town and town and town, right? You got like Huntington Beach and Newport Beach and all these towns, and they all combine. So you can choose any one of those cities to live in, and it's a regular city. But that's not how it is here. You look on the map and you'll see these small towns, but they're not typically viable towns to live in for most people moving in. And so, you know, as far as the driving of those roads goes, yeah, definitely do your research into like how far are those towns away from each other and what kind of roads are you driving on. In Idaho, there are a lot of dirt roads. So, like, obviously not in the Boise metropolitan area, but once you leave that, there's quite a bit of dirt roads. And I've had people like, oh, I want to live in the mountains and I want this. And I'm like, okay, well, here's how it is. You'll have a shared road agreement and you guys need to maintain the gravel. And they're like, oh, I don't want to live on a dirt road. It's like, okay, then you probably don't want to live in the mountains. So,
Yeah, it can get a little sketchy in the winter around here, but that's why. Do you guys allow studded tires down there? Do you know?
yeah, they do.
Yeah, that's like the greatest thing ever. I mean, when I was a kid in
Yeah.
Minnesota, they did not have that, and
Oh,
I
wow.
never understood that. But we didn't get back there. It was so bitter cold that the roads never really got slick. It was just 400 below zero all the time, and
Yeah.
um, but here with all that, because we're almost too warm in the winter, we get the freezing and thawing every
Oh, no.
day, where it'll get up in the mid 30s during the day, and then
Right.
the roads will get wet, and then it goes down to
Freezes.
15 at night, and so in the morning it's just a ice rink, and
Nice.
so if you don't have studs, it's a pain.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, in the Boise area, you don't really need studs. In fact, you don't really even need all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. But if you go to the mountains, like my family goes up skiing all the time or whatever, then you definitely are going to want an all-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive car. But yeah, at least where we live, we've had winters where we didn't even barely snow the entire winter. And if we do get snow, it's like a couple inches and it melts by the morning. And if we get snow that lasts 2 or 3 days, the roads are cleared and it's not that big of a deal here. So,
Yeah.
but that's just Boise. The rest of the state is more like Montana as far as the snow goes.
Yeah. Frank checking in from Brooksville, Florida at 70. He's too old to move, but he loves our videos. Thanks for watching, Frank.
Yeah, thanks.
Mary Beth loves the Cascade area. Isn't that where that ski resort is, right?
The Tamarack. So that's a little bit closer to Boise than McCall. Right by McCall, but it's beautiful.
I've been working from home since the pandemic and watching Metal Arc Log Home YouTube made me moving to Montana, but can't make my decision. Well, I hope our video is
Just do
helping you today. Well, here's one. I'll let you answer this one, Summer. Which state is more conservative?
I don't know. I can't tell you that on a comparison basis which
I
one
would
is.
probably say Idaho is, to be honest. And I know you guys are almost like California, where now Boise's get the big city, and then northern Idaho is super
Yeah.
conservative, whereas Montana is more like libertarian. I would say it's people
Yeah.
just leave me alone and
That's
don't.
true. I mean, people that I've talked to who want to move to Montana do seem to definitely be more in that camp of like, just let's just live and let live, and let's just do what we want and
Yeah.
separate a little bit. Yeah, and most people, especially moving to Boise, are um, wanting the different politics from the states they're coming from, but at the same time, they want the things that the city has to offer. So,
Well, and like again, I mentioned earlier, our Congress only meets once every 2 years.
oh,
So I always joke that the governor of Montana has the easiest job on the planet because he works 90 days once every 2 years, and then the rest of the time he just hangs out because
yeah,
there's nothing going on. But um, yeah, it's just people just they love the fact that they only meet once every 2 years because then they can't ruin anything.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the maps, Idaho is a very red state. But I don't know, like on a town or individual basis, if Montana or Idaho is more conservative.
yeah, I don't whatever. Just I'm of the libertarian point. Just
Right.
do what you want, but don't push it on me.
Right. Yeah.
Here we go. Boise has an awesome balloon festival. Don't know that Montana has that.
That is true.
We do
Yep.
not have that.
The spirit of Boise. Well, it has something to do with temperatures. So maybe, I don't know, you have to do it when the temperatures are right. But we've got that coming up here, I think, pretty soon.
Have you gone up in a hot air balloon?
I haven't gone up in one. No, we used to take our kids down to that balloon festival, and they'd let the kids go up just a little bit. They'd keep them tied down, but I haven't been up in one. But no, we actually didn't know about the hot air balloons here. They also not only have the festival, but they have other companies that do it. And when we first moved here, we lived downtown because we were going to school. We had no idea. And early in the morning, that's when they fly. We hear like this, we hear the heater thing. We're like, what is that? And this huge balloon is like coming right down our street, and then it lands in front of our house because they can't totally control where they land. And anyway, so we've had a few experiences watching the hot air balloons. It's cool.
I'm not a big fan of heights, so you'd have to shoot me first before you'd get me into one of those baskets.
Yeah.
Alan, great to see you both. Fantastic info. Thank you. Thank you. Info or thoughts on Shoto, Montana and Twin Falls, Idaho? Well, Shoto, I've only been there once. I went for it's kind of cool, Summer. I don't know if
I don't know
you're
where
into
Shoto
this or
is.
not, but they have this lake. It's called Freeze Out Lake, and every spring and fall, all of the migrating geese, they all come in at the same time. So you go
cool.
out to this lake, and there's like millions.
Huh.
I mean, when they take off in the morning, it's just, and I did a video on it. If anybody's interested, it's back about 2 years ago. You'll have to find it, but when they all take off, it's just this. It's unbelievable. It's
That's cool.
quite a sight to see. And Shoto's a little town. It's on the east slope of the Rockies there, so you got fantastic views of the mountains. You're kind of out in the prairie a little bit right there, but small town, nice town, friendly people. That's what I
Does it?
got on Shoto. What do you have on Twin Falls?
Twin Falls it's pretty much by itself as well, kind of an isolated town. It's about an hour and a half drive from Boise. It is out in the desert, the high desert, so you can't really see the mountains from there. I mean, you can kind of see way, way off in the distance. It's right on the Snake River Canyon, though, so there is some really nice recreation as far as like BLM land goes, and as far as getting down into the canyon goes. And then you can also get to Sun Valley from there in a couple of hours. So you can get up into the mountains, not too far. But I mean, Twin Falls is a standalone city. It has all of the restaurants and shopping and, you know, medical centers. I mean, like doesn't have trauma centers. You'd have to go to Salt Lake or Boise, but I mean, there's a lot of people that have moved to Twin Falls to retire when they want something a little smaller than Boise. But their weather is harsher than Boise's, and it's windy and colder. So
Here's another one for you. Great discussion. We're considering Driggs, Idaho for Teton views without the Jackson prices. Is it still affordable or is it more resort pricing?
it depends on what you think affordable is. It's quite expensive, but it is less than Jackson. So, but it's quite expensive. It's beautiful though.
That's a tiny. I mean, I drive when I get out of here in the winter and drive down I-15. Isn't Driggs right like
Yeah.
above Idaho Falls there?
Yeah, Driggs is kind of on, well, it's out as you go. No, Driggs is right on the base of the Tetons, right on the other side of the Tetons. You've got the Wyoming side and you have the Idaho side. So Driggs is kind of in that like Island Park area and stuff. Not exactly, but it's closer to Yellowstone and the Tetons. Yeah, it's a small town. Definitely smaller than Jackson, but and that road, that road that goes from Jackson Hole over and around to the Idaho is horrible in the winter.
Here's one of the normal things. If you're from California, I think you should actually move to Canada. That's not very nice. Summer's from California.
Hey, Idaho's an opportunity state for everyone.
Junie, my love for both states are for the agriculture, mainly cattle, great ranchers in both states.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. I'm trying to get through any more. We're getting close to our hour here. So
yeah.
If anyone has any last minute questions. Oh, here's another political one. Are you both transplants, Idaho and Montana? So those states are welcoming to outsiders. Montana has a New Jersey governor. Yes, it does. That's what always cracks me up about the people in Montana are always complaining about out-of-staters, but yet this is who they elected. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess I'm a transplant to Idaho. We've been here a long time, and my kids were born here, so it doesn't necessarily feel like it. But I don't know about where you live. In Boise, at least, it has such a high amount of people who've moved here in the last 20 30 years even. So even though you've got people online especially that are like, don't move to Idaho, we don't want you here, the reality is there's very few like actual like third or fourth generation Idahoans. And Idaho is a relatively young state too as far as when it got settled, so it's pretty hard to find like third fourth generation Idahoans here. But so they're welcoming. They aren't online. The mean people come out online, but in real life, it's fine.
Mary Beth, Central California is very ag based and has been referred to as being like Iowa. Definitely not like LA or San Francisco, very opposite.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I've driven through that part of California and yeah, it's very ag based.
Yeah, we're from, I mean, I was born in Los Angeles area, but then we moved to the Sacramento area, and which has grown a lot as well. But yes, of course, the whole Central Valley of California used to feed something like 90% of the, I don't know, it was a huge statistic. They feed a lot of the world. So very agriculture.
Lisa says you can't go wrong moving to Idaho or Montana. That's relative, but both are freedom-loving states with hardworking people.
That's
Yep.
true. And one thing that you may have noticed in Montana as well is that we just have super hardworking people. We're very largely based on people running their own businesses.
Yeah. Well, we took your suggestion and drove to Essex and Mini Glacier. What a great trip. Thank you. I'm glad you did. That is, Mini Glacier is probably the prettiest spot on the planet until somebody can show me differently. I will argue that until the day I die. So, well, that kind of gets us to the end, and we're right at an hour. So let me put this up again real quick. You guys can all get a hold of Summer if you're looking in Idaho. I suggest you do. All of her contact information is on her YouTube channel, which is Summer Aston Real Estate. And thank you for coming on. And
Yeah, thank you for having me.
thank everybody for tuning in and watching. And we will be back in 2 weeks to do this all over again. So thank you.
Yeah,
See
thank
you
you so
later.
much. Well, okay, bye.